This is James Mathers at Cine Gear Expo 2019 for the Digital Cinema Society. I'm here with Mitch Gross from Panasonic. And Mitch, I'd like you to tell me about the VariCam family. I mean, you've got tons of different cameras and they all seem to fit together. And how does that work?
Yeah, well, we really do look at it as a family, that it is, all the cameras are meant to work together well, and then each has its own sort of focus and special aspect to it. So top of the line, VariCam Pure, raw only, it has a codex recorder in the back, and it's just the amazing 4K 12-bit 120 frame second camera, and it's actually very limited controls on it because that's all you need. It's pure, it's simple, it's clean, and you can take the video output and you can put a LUT on it and things like that, so for monitoring stuff. But the idea is, like, if you're shooting Crazy Rich Asians or whatever, you're shooting, there's a couple of new movies that are right now shooting on it where it's like, they don't want to be thinking, they want to think, old school film in that way. It's like you don't have, not a lot of fussy stuff all over it. So it's very simple, clean camera. It's actually quite petite too, because it doesn't need all this other stuff. So you don't need the real estate for all that stuff. And then the VariCam 35, you literally take the recorder off and pop on the video recorder instead. And I'm not speaking figuratively, it literally is an interchangeable design building block system, if you will. So the same camera front end, head, but now you're going and recording 4K, 12-bit, 120 frame a second, 444 video if you want. And then other, flavors along the way and stuff. But now you're working in a video system, and this is great for like series TV and such, or commercial work, where you're going to have a main recording, and then you're going to have a secondary recording, and then you're also going to have a proxy recording, and then you're going to have multiple video outputs, and some have a LUT applied, and some are clean, and it's like a whole DIT station built into this thing.
That's what we're shooting with here.
There we go.
We have a V35, and this one's an LT. And I've always loved the VariCam color, and I didn't want anybody to tell me I couldn't use whatever camera I had because it wasn't 4K. And this was one of the early ones that was Super 35 and 4K.
Yeah, so Netflix loves, approves of all these shows on Netflix because, and other places of course as well, because it is a no apologies 4K camera system, Super 35, so you can use all your favorite lenses and everything on it, and still a physical size and convenience use to the camera and stuff. And so, you have all this amazing workflow ability if you want. You don't have to use all that stuff, but you have all that stuff built into the VariCam 35, and you can get up to 120 frames a second with it. And if you don't need that, if you want to just say, well, 4K up to 60 frames a second, that's plenty, that's great. But what I would like is a camera that's a little more friendly to handhold, and a little more portable, maybe a little softer,
less expensive,
little less expensive, but also less use on my battery power as well. And really bounces well in the shoulder, that stuff. You have the VariCam LT. VariCam LT is a lighter weight camera. You can put PL lenses, of course, or you could put EF lenses, and that way you can go really small and be doing dock style work if you want to, or do big series work too.
And they have identical sensor, and dual native ISO is another big attraction.
Absolutely. So the identical sensor and processing that behind it, so that when they're at the matched frame rates and stuff, literally the exact same image. And you can get raw output from the LT if you want to go to a third-party recorder, or you can record internally in video. And it is that dual native ISO technology that we pioneered, and still other people have kind of their variations of, but it's not really the same thing and stuff. But we, at 800 or at 5,000 ISO, you get 14.5 stops of dynamic range, either one. You can always gain up on any camera, and you can gain up on these cameras, and eventually it'll get noisy. But at 800 or 5,000,
it's pretty nice at 5,000.
It is no compromise and stuff. So Prince of Darkness cameras. You can really, you can shoot in very, very low light, or it just can mean that you can be shooting in a relatively nice light level, but you could be using your favorite zoom now and not have to worry about going to a super speed primes and stuff, and convenience factor.
And then comes the EVA-1. How does that fit into the family?
So again, we wanted to keep cameras that have a sort of a matching image technology, and you can intercut between them, but we wanted to have, people think handheld, and they think, old school handheld is shoulder mount. and that's the VariCam LT, and it's great for that. But the new school is this little thing. You grab it in one hand, you grab the palm of your hand, and you run around with it. That is a different type of handheld, and that is the niche that a camera like the EVA-1 falls into, and it's a very big niche now. This has become like the
but
biggest.
But it's
most
still Super
common
35. It's not.
It's still a Super 35
not
sensor.
a smaller sensor like some of the
Right. So it's not like
cameras.
a little camcorder type sensor. It's still a Super 35 sensor. And in fact, what we did is the sensor that is in the VariCams, the Pure, the 35, and the LT, that Super 35 sensor, true 4K sensor, it's an extremely expensive sensor to manufacture. To design and manufacture, it's a fantastic piece of technology, but it means that you're having to have a camera that it's a certain kind of price point and such, because it's what it takes to be able to make that. So what we did for the EVA-1 is that we, instead of having a 4K sensor, we have a 5.7K sensor. It's almost twice as many photo sites, and it's still Super 35, so they're smaller. But by throwing all that resolution at it, you're then able to get a 4K image and able to hide a lot of things within to get that 4K image. That way, it's in effect, even though it's higher resolving, it is less expensive for us to manufacture that sensor. So that way, and also we learned a few lessons and be able to like lower power consumption and stuff like that. So now we were able to make an EVA-1 that is a lower priced camera that also runs on these little camcorder batteries and such, and keeps it small and lightweight, and yet offers an image that is comparable and at the performance level that is comparable to work with the VariCam line. Now, if you want a 10-bit 422 recording from that sensor, you're going to get 4K up to 30 frames a second. We can do a 10-bit that is a 420. We can do that up to 60 frames a second. But these are some of the limitations when you get to a camera as small as the EVA-1. So again, if you're shooting,
I've intercut them.
You can intercut these cameras perfectly. They're the
I used
same
an EVA-1 with my two VariCams, and it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, they are designed to work together. Unlike some companies that'll have various things that they call their whatever number or letter of log, and they have it throughout their products and stuff. But when you try it from this camera and you try it from that camera, they look different. They just don't really seem the same. Our cameras are truly designed to work all together, and that even goes down into our consumer level cameras. So cameras like the GH5 and GH5S, and now the full frame ones, the S1, S1R, S1H that we just announced. These cameras all have versions of Vlog, and they have the same characteristics to their log curve and such, and the way that we reproduce colors. The idea, some of those cameras aren't quite, they'll have like Vlog L for like light. They won't have quite the range, but within the range that they are capturing, the way they capture colors, they are designed to intercut, even with all the way up to the VariCam.
I haven't tried that yet, but
so you really have these cameras that are designed. So, and there are different uses for different tools. And I'm never going to tell anyone that, you need to use this screwdriver to hammer a nail. At a certain point where you have one tool that really works well for this little handheld rig kind of, balancing thing. And then you have another one you're going to put on a Steadicam sled, and another one that's always going to live on the dolly on big sticks or head or whatever. You have different uses for different kind of tools. And wherever it's appropriate, we really try and fit the bill. Now, of course, a number of our cameras you can use along the line for lots of different things, but it really depends on the type of work you're doing. We want these machines to intermingle as much as possible, and then you use them however it makes sense.
Can you tell me what's in the future? If I had a crystal ball, I'd say that the sensor might be getting bigger, because a lot of the other companies have done that. But can you say?
Well, what I can say is that we're no dummies, and we always are working on lots of different things. So we have, there's been a commitment that we've been quite public about towards the 2020 Olympics in Japan, where we're going to have 8K capabilities. In fact, we showed 8K technology for sports capture and such at NAB, and it's a big camera with a big sensor on it, and what we were doing is it had an 8K image, and then we had regions of interest stuff where you were panning and scanning around inside the frame and stuff. But you can actually also take this camera and take the whole image and be able to, it's a gorgeous 8K camera. Now, where we implement that technology in the future and other things that we're working on. I mean, there are, we have our science technology areas, R&D stuff. We'll announce certain products, certain technologies that we've developed, and people are like, "Oh, is that going to be in the next camera?" And it's like, it might be a few years away. I mean, because it's like we've made this thing work with on the sensor ND technology and stuff, and being able to get all these stops at dynamic range, like crazy, unbelievable bits of technology. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to pop out a camera that has that built in. But we are ahead of the game with a lot of different things, and a lot of it is what we can do, and then a lot of it is we work out something, and then we're talking to
see if the demand is there.
Well, the client's like, what makes the most sense? I mean, it's not just like what will sell. It's really like, well, what will help you to do the work that you want to do? I mean, a very simple answer would be what we call Cinelive and EvaLive. The VariCam LT and the EVA1 were designed as production cameras, not live event cameras. And we have like a whole line of studio style cameras and stuff that is for that type of work. But people really liked the look of these production cameras and wanted to use them for doing comedy specials and concerts and other events. A lot of house of worship clients and stuff that really wanted to be able to use these cameras for that type of work. Like, well, they're our clients. They want stuff from us. Why we're not going to ignore that. And so did a lot of work to develop a way to make these cameras work in a way they weren't originally designed to.
In a multiple camera system.
Shooting multicam and being able to have like a paint box at an engineering station and totally control the look of the camera, live and do things. That has nothing to do with the production world, and it doesn't even have anything to do with the world that these cameras were just really originally developed for, but we were able to kind of re-engineer things to use some of our other tools and did a firmware release to, a free firmware release to update the use of the camera, and now they can do these things. And, HLG output for doing HDR live work and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't where the cameras initially were. A really simple example is that the EVA1 was designed, again, as a production camera, but then we had a bunch of news outlets that said, we really like this camera. It's really interesting. Except that, for our workflow and stuff, we need 1080i. And we're like, 1080i, really? This is all progressive camera that does it. It's like, yeah, but our workflow, we need to be, we're broadcast and get on the air right away. And we also need a version that, the 100 megabit thing, that's really nice stuff. But our workflow, we got to keep it all really small. So can we have something that's 1080i and 50 megabit? We're like, okay, and we did it, and so we added it to the camera, and it's like,
it's a choice.
These guys really like it, and for their use, it's terrific. It's perfect. If I'm doing commercial production work, no, I'm not going to be using that, but they're doing real work too, and this is very effective use for them. And lots of little tools like that. There's other things that, I could go on and on about just someone's like, I like having this feature and that feature, but I want to be able to quickly switch between them so that when I'm shooting one thing and I want to go to high speed or whatever, and so we came up with a way to do what we call a quick switch, where it's like, basically have a little user button to kind of program, and then you beep, it pulls up a menu, and then there it is, and you can quickly switch between them instead of having to go through the menu and find the things and reset to do it. We try to listen to the clients about what they want. So what's coming in the future, we're always working on things. There's always things in the future that we're planning, and even if I were to divulge all of the things that I've been made privy to, I can tell you that I'd be wrong, because
it'll change by the time it gets to market.
It'll change because we listen to the clients, and so we have a plan of what we think we're going to do, but we have to be responsive. And if we find that function XYZ that we think is really nifty, neat, and that could be really useful, and then we go around talking to a bunch of clients, and they're like, yeah, we're not going that direction. That's interesting, but we decided to skip over that kind of thing. We're actually really interested in this. This is the way that we want to be going. Well, we're not going to be defiant and say, no, we insist on coming out with this and you're going to buy it. No, that doesn't make sense for anybody. We're going to listen to what they really want out of stuff and go forward that way.
Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing your views.
Thank you.